Ford's little Puma small SUV was launched in the middle of the COVID crisis, but that didn't stop it from becoming the UK's best seller. 4 years on after launch, the brand usefully updated this model to create the car we try here, with a smarter look and a redesigned, better connected interior. The major reason you might really like it though, the sharp, engaging handling, remains just as before.
This, if you weren't already aware, is Britain's best-selling car, Ford's Puma, the little SUV that these days is the brand's entry-level model. First launched in 2019, it was updated 4 years later to create the car that we're going to look at right here. In its lifetime, the Puma model line has had to cope with a lot. COVID lockdowns just after its original introduction, which meant virtual customer test drives, ire from brand loyalists who fondly remembered the turn of the century Puma coupe, whose name it bears, and more recently, disgruntlement from Ford folk who wanted the now discontinued Fiesta Super Mini, but now have to choose one of these instead. Yet, through it all, the Puma has just kept on selling and, in true Ford fashion, has, along the way, bucked the trend for dull-to-drive little SUVs and established itself as a segment driver's choice. This mid-term facelift was announced in 2024, just before the arrival of another milestone for the Puma model line, the introduction of an all-electric variant, the Gen E. This combustion version rolls down the same Romanian production line as that EV and is our focus today, based as before around the platform and the 3-cylinder 1-litre EcoBoost mild hybrid engine that was developed for the old Fiesta. None of those fundamentals have changed as part of this update, but as we'll see, the cabin design certainly has, and Ford's also taken the opportunity to bring safety tech and media connectivity right up to date. But will this light makeover be enough to sustain the Puma in such an overcrowded class? And is it still the engaging steer that the earlier version was? Well, to find out, you will, as usual, need the industry's most comprehensive review, the Car and Driving Road Test. Ford hasn't fundamentally changed anything about the engineering or the handling of this updated Puma. It didn't really need to. This was already the most engaging car to drive in its segment. The choice selection beneath the bonnet is a little different from what we saw back in 2019 though. The unelectrified petrol and TDCi diesel engines which featured back then are of course long gone, as is rather disappointingly the sporty 1.5 litre 4-cylinder engine that was previously fitted to the top Puma ST, which means that all combustion Pumas now use some sort of 3-cylinder 1-litre EcoBoost mild hybrid 48-volt unit, the powertrain almost everyone wants with this car. As before, for mainstream models, this comes primarily in the 125 PS form that we're trying here, with either 6-speed manual or, as in this case, 7-speed automatic transmission. It's the auto that you have to have if you want a tuned up version of that little unit, either with 155 PS or, in the case of the top ST version, with 170 PS. The other Puma drivetrain is the one fitted to the all-electric Gen E model, and that uses a 168 PS electric motor drawing from a 43 kilowatt-hour battery, offering up to 234 miles of EV range. We're going to cover that car though in a separate film. Now, before we drove the old Ford EcoSport, we would have argued that it'd be tough to create a dynamic duffer using the brand's Fiesta underpinnings. Unfortunately, though, for its bottom line, Ford proved us wrong there, but it was determined not to make the same mistake again here. And right from the off in this Puma, as with the pre-facelift version, the signs are good. Now, most small crossovers in this class are about as rewarding to drive as a weekend spent creosoting your mother-in-law's fence. But this one immediately feels eager and accurate and poised. You want to drive it, not just be seen in it. The old Puma coupe of the turn of the century relied on performance purity for this, painstaking development of the ride, the handling and the engine by a small group of engineers who loved the project so much that they gave up their weekends to work on it. This modern interpretation of the model line isn't of course the enthusiast orientated coupe that old Puma was, but there is still a sense here of a car that's been developed by people who really care about how it drives, something that you just don't get from other trendy B-segment crossovers. It is slightly impaired, of course it is, by the high-sidedness and the slight extra weight which afflicts all little SUVs of this kind, but the compromises here have been kept to a minimum, and in compensation there's a slug of electrified tech that has a great deal to do with the ready eagerness that we just referenced. Increasingly in this class we're seeing hybrid engines which can drive you on battery power alone for short periods. This little Ford's mild hybrid EcoBoost unit can't do that, but its added 48-volt system, which sees a battery-fed starter generator acting as a 15 PS motor and adding 50 Nm of torque into the driveline, makes a real significant difference to low-speed pulling power. Switch into an unelectrified model in this segment, like a 1-litre turbo Nissan Juke for example, and you'd really notice the drivability difference. You won't learn much about this from a glance at the performance stats. 0 to 62 in 9.8 seconds en route to 119 miles an hour in this 125 PS model. If you select the most urgent of the drive modes, that is, Sport, the others are normal, eco and slippery. And the 170 PS ST version is of course a bit faster still, 7.4 seconds and 130 miles an hour. That top variant's embellished with steering response that's 25% faster and brakes that are 17% larger than those in the standard Puma. Plus the ST gets bespoke damper tuning, specially developed Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tyres, an extra track drive mode and thicker front and rear anti-roll bars which add to cornering stability. If you want to go further with your ST, then Ford will also sell you a handling pack which adds KW coilovers. With the earlier version of this model, we strongly recommended that top ST variant, but we're less enthusiastic now that sporty model has less power and auto-only transmission, a dual clutch box which even on this lesser ST line test model detracts from the sharpness of the fizzy drivetrain. A 50% increase in firmness in the ST's rear suspension might also be unwelcome, spoiling the fluid ride which characterises this conventional variant, even with the sport suspension that you have to have above base trim. As for refinement, well, the engine is a bit thrummy at lower speeds, but it does calm down nicely at a cruise, and smaller than usual dimensions for this class really pay dividends when it comes to manoeuvring on tight city streets. The visual changes made as part of this update are subtle, and as before with this Puma, there's certainly a lot going on here. Maybe even a hint of miniature Porsche Macan if you squint a bit, but this little Ford retains very much its own look, which is an achievement in itself in this proliferating segment. You're unlikely to notice that this is an updated Puma from the side, because in profile there are hardly any changes over the original, unless you happen to note the updated wheel designs spread over 17, 18 or 19 inch rims. We've got the 18 inches here. The styling's dated well because mainly with the original shape, Ford's designers deliberately avoided the wedge style look common to most other small SUVs in the segment, opting instead for this more distinctive silhouette with its undulating shoulder line, its floating A-pillar, the angled crease that flows up from the front wheel arch and the exaggerated rear haunches. As before, at just 4,186 mils in length, this is one of the smaller cars in the segment. The Gen E electric model's fractionally larger thanks to its slightly stretched B-car platform. To give you some class perspective, even a little Nissan Juke measures in at 4,210 mils. It's at the front that an existing Puma owner would notice the stylistic differences made as part of the update. The unusual canoe-shaped headlights are retained high up on the bonnet, like the little turn-of-the-century Puma coupe, but they now incorporate a smarter daytime running light signature. This sees a built-in illuminating strip flow down into 3 small lower ribs. Also different is the repositioning of the Ford oval badge from the nose to the central grille. Intricate corner cutouts flank this second lower lattice grille, which is also necessary to cool the little 1 litre EcoBoost mild hybrid engine, which all Pumas now have to have. Again, the Gen E version looks a bit different with its revised bumpers and its blanked off grille. Nothing's really changed at the rear, nothing really needed to. So as before, there's a substantial roof spoiler, large split LED tail lamps, big lower corner reflectors, and this sporty lower diffuser section, all disguising the fact that the bits you can't see come straight from the old Fiesta Super Mini. This Puma sits on the same Global B platform as the final version of that car used. Finishing touches are provided by spaced out model lettering and dinky little rear wiper. So not much has changed on the outside, but that's because Ford says it spent most of the update budget in improving the front of cabin experience. So let's take a look. And sure enough, inside, the update changes are far more obvious. The redesigned dashboard is less cluttered than before and features slim air vents, wraparound feel too, and a revised but still rather ugly squared off 2-spoke steering wheel. Through that you view a larger 12.8-inch instrument screen, which is now standard across the range, and the central infotainment screen too. That is now much larger, up from 8 to 12 inches in size, and again it's standard across the range too. There's also now a sliding central armrest and smart ambient lighting to give the cabin a classier feel. Should you switch to that Gen E version, you'll find the center console quite different to what we have here. With that variant, Ford's been able to redesign it because the EV, of course, doesn't need either a gear stick or a manual handbrake. Some things haven't changed, of course, which is good and bad in equal measure. On the positive side, you can still have this neat soundbar-like B&O speaker stretching over the top of the 2 main screens in plusher models like this one. And the ergonomics remain excellent, with everything falling nicely to hand, and a sporty feeling driving position, which is slightly lower set than the class norm. And in this car, it feels all the better for it. And not so good is the rather cheap feeling build quality from Ford Otosan's supposedly state-of-the-art Craiova factory in Romania. This box between the seats creaks from side to side, and there's also plenty of play in the positioning of the handbrake, the gear lever, and the side of the door bins too. Ford attempts to distract your attention from all that on ST line models like this one, with double red stitching which extends from the doors into the dash, and also features on the steering wheel that's decorated with plasticky feeling Sensico faux leather. We mentioned the new digital instrument cluster, which is ½ an inch bigger than before, has higher definition graphics, and can display in 2 formats, either with 2 round gauge-like dials for RPM and speed, or in a calmer, uncluttered format with range and a digital speedo. You can tailor what appears in the center of the screen. The options are trip and fuel data, vehicle status information, vehicle maintenance, trip computer information, audio selection, navigation, and phone settings. Everything else is covered off by this big 12-inch Sync 4 central infotainment monitor, which apparently has twice the computing power of the previous Sync 3 system. The main area of the screen isn't quite as big as its overall size suggests, because there is a wide shortcut section for settings, features and apps on the right frame, and a chunk of the bottom frame there is taken up with the permanently displaying climate functions that savvier brands brands are now recognizing that most buyers want to actually see separated out into physical switchgear. Here, the previous buttons for climate control and for heated seats are now integrated into the touchscreen. Across the range, this monitor includes navigation, wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and Ford Assistant voice control too. And there are some nice touches like valet mode and built-in Alexa too. Plus, the previous 4G Ford Pass Connect system has been upgraded to a 5G setup to drive the incorporated vehicle hotspot. What else? Well, the driver's seat is quite comfortable with standard lumbar support, although we're sad to see the brand replace the supportive Recaro front chairs that used to be fitted to the top ST version with Ford Performance ones instead. As before, we like the quick clear heated windscreen. We don't like the rear view camera's poor resolution though. Disappointingly, the paddle shifters, which were previously on the steering wheel of automatic versions like this one, have disappeared. Some effort has been made though to make the cabin a little more practical, hence this new phone storage compartment down there with nearby USB-A and USB-C ports, although it is a pity that you have to stretch right up to pricey trim to get its integrated wireless charging mat fitted as standard. The lidded box between the seats here we mentioned earlier, it is deep with a lift-out tray, and just ahead of that are twin cup holders with a couple of nearby cubbies. The door bins and the glove box, they're both big, and there is a ticket clip in the passenger sun visor. Time to take a seat in the rear. Will this Puma's relatively short size cost you in terms of back seat space? To some extent, yes, although most customers choosing a Super Mini-based small SUV will only be using this rear bench for kids or adults on occasional short journeys, so that might not matter. It is a pity though that this bench base doesn't slide as it would do in a rival Renault Captur. These small side windows don't help to create much of a roomy feel, and if you have lanky teenagers that you have to ferry about, well, we'd steer you well clear of this optional two-part panoramic glass roof, which really does eat into headroom. Otherwise though, a couple of 6-footers will be comfortable enough, helped by the way that they could slide their big size 10s under the seat in front. No effort's been made, even in this plush model, to break up the drab plastic of the door cards, but Ford has at least now added a couple of USB-C ports and a 12-volt socket back here. You don't get a central armrest, which is predictable on a Super Mini derived model, and there are no overhead reading lights either. Plus, the door bins are basically just bottle holders, and the headrests dig into your neck until they're raised. But you do get a couple of overhead coat hooks and seat back pockets. Finally, let's take a look in the boot. We'll pause on the way to mention the Ford Easy Fuel capless refueling system, which is designed to stop you from putting diesel into a petrol model or vice versa. This hands-free powered tailgate is optional with the volume trim levels, but you don't really need that because the hatch is light to lift and it opens to reveal something that might really sell you this car, a very decently sized boot. 456 litres in this combustion model and a huge 574 litres in the Gen E variant. There's also an adjustable height boot floor you really can adjust with one hand, and when it's in its lower position, up to 6 carry-on suitcases will fit back here. The tonneau cover is rather flimsy, but it does at least rise neatly out of the way as you raise the hatch flat against the tailgate glass. There are bag hooks on both sides and a 12-volt socket on the right. Below the cargo base, you can't stow a spare wheel, but that's because Ford's designers decided to use that space instead to create the so-called mega box recessed underfloor well. It's a clever way of using the extra space, which means that tall items like plants or golf clubs can be transported upright if you move the adjustable height boot floor out of the way. It's a 68-litre space, that's big enough for a couple of extra carry-on bags, and it can take up to 50 kilos in weight. Plus it's waterproof, watertight, and it even has a plug hole provided beneath the base rubber mat so you can flush out the area after transporting filthy wellies or muddy boots. Lengthy items aren't as easily accommodated because Ford provides neither a ski hatch or a 40-20-40 rear seat back split. Push forward the 60-40 split rear backrest and a 1216 litre space reveals itself. The Gen E electric version has an additional 43 litre underbonnet frunk. Puma pricing reflects current figures in the volume part of the small SUV segment. To be specific, at the time of this test in spring 2025, that meant a starting point in the combustion range of around £26,500, with figures rising to around £35,000 at the top of the lineup. Trim levels are based around familiar titanium and ST-Line badging, plus this plusher ST-Line X option. Almost all Pumas are sold with the volume 125 PS version of the 1 litre mild hybrid engine we've been trying here. That can be had with this test car's 7-speed auto transmission for an extra £1,800. If you want an automatic ST-Line X trimmed Puma, you'll be offered the option of spending £700 more for the uprated 155 PS version of the same mild hybrid engine. The top auto-only ST variant, priced from around £34,000 as we filmed, gets this unit in an even sportier 170 PS state of tune, and for an extra £1,050 can be had in more engaging form with Ford's optional handling pack. But since we're primarily looking at more affordable Pumas here, it's probably more pertinent to tell you that these days this little Ford can also be had as an EV. That Gen E full electric Puma isn't our focus here, but to complete our range rundown, let's tell you that from launch, that EV version was priced from around £30,000 and has a different trim structure, Select and Premium. Back to the combustion models, which take on a wide range of similarly priced key players in the SUV B segment, like Nissan's Juke, Renault's Captur, Peugeot's 2008, Citroen's C3 Aircross, Vauxhall's Mokka, and the Frontera 2, of course, Volkswagen's T-Cross, Toyota's Yaris Cross, Skoda's Kamiq and Seat's Arona. There's also Kia's Stonic, Hyundai's Bayon, Dacia's Duster, and for committed fashionistas, the DS3. So you're not short of segment choice. It is worth knowing that in this segment, only the Renault Captur, the Dacia Duster and Toyota's Yaris Cross can be had with a proper full hybrid engine, the kind of power plant that can run for short urban distances on electric power alone. The 48-volt mild hybrid unit available at extra cost in the Peugeot, the Citroen, the Vauxhall and the DS models I just mentioned, they can do that to a limited extent, but this Ford's more conventional mild hybrid engine can't do that at all. Still, this Puma remains a strong package, and if you're tempted by it, you'll be wanting to know about standard specs. So let's take a look at that right now. All versions of this Ford get LED headlights and alloy wheels, 17-inch rims on the mainstream versions, 18 inches on this ST-Line X and Gen E Premium, and 19-inch alloys on the top ST. There's also LED tail lamps, auto high beam, rear privacy glass, a quick clear windscreen and cruise control with intelligent speed assist, along with selectable drive modes, auto headlamps and wipers, a rear view camera and rear parking sensors. There is also the Ford Pass mobile app that includes a vehicle locator and a vehicle status checker, so you can do things like verify your fuel level and remotely lock or unlock the doors. Inside this updated model's revised screens, a standard fit, a 12.8-inch instrument cluster and a 12-inch Sync 4 central monitor with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, plus connected navigation, a 6-speaker audio system and Ford Pass connected media connectivity. You also get electronic automatic temperature control, a rear view camera and the useful Megabox extended load space in the boot. Is it worth avoiding base titanium trim and upgrading to one of the ST line models? Well, a huge number of Puma customers do. Those supposedly sportier variants gain a body styling kit, sports suspension and black ST line cloth trim with red stitching, plus power folding mirrors with puddle lamps. This ST line X trim level further adds larger 18-inch wheels, a powered tailgate, keyless entry, a 10-speaker premium B&O sound system, synthetic leather upholstery with suede inserts, a wireless phone charging pad, and also passenger seat lumbar adjustment. To that tally, the top ST model adds even larger 19-inch wheels, a more bespoke ST body kit, its own selection of drive modes, and also adaptive cruise control. Plus, Ford Performance seats too, heat for the steering wheel and for the front seats, a 360-degree camera, matrix LED headlights, and some extra camera drive assist features too. On to options. We've got a few of the main ones fitted here actually. The matrix LED headlamps, a power opening panorama glass roof, and a winter pack which gives you heat for the steering wheel and for the front seats. Titanium and ST line models, they can be had with a comfort pack that adds a powered tailgate, keyless entry and a wireless phone charger. Big 19-inch wheels can also be had at extra cost on the two ST line models. A detachable tow bar that's available too across the range. Earlier we mentioned the top ST model's optional handling pack. Now the only handling aspect of this edition lies with a set of KW coilovers. The pack also includes bespoke alloy wheels, a contrast black roof, illuminated front door sills and a round steering wheel to replace the usual oval shaped one. Across the Puma range, bear in mind, unless you choose the only standard colour, and that's solid frozen white, you'll be needing to find at least £800 more for your chosen paint shade. We've got cactus grey here. Most colours can be ordered at extra cost with a contrasting black coloured roof. On to safety kit. A standard drive assist tech includes pre-collision assist with autonomous emergency braking and pedestrian cyclist detection, plus a driver impairment monitor, post-collision braking, a lane keeping aid and lane departure warning. There's also speed limit assist and rear occupant alert. If you want more, then you'll have to budget an extra £950 for the driver assistant pack that we've got here. This adds a blind spot information system with lane change warning, a lane change aid and a cross traffic alert system. Plus there's also wrong way alert, a useful reverse brake assist feature. This will automatically apply the brakes in order to stop you from hitting objects or pets or people at parking speeds. This pack also includes an intelligent adaptive cruise control system with evasive steering assist and a traffic jam assist feature too, which will virtually drive this car for you in urban queues. Ford's been offering this little mild hybrid powertrain for half a decade now, and it's still an impressive piece of tech, as the official efficiency stats of this Puma in its most popular manual 125 PS form indicate up to 52.3 miles per gallon on the combined cycle and up to 121 grams per kilometre of CO2. That's the kind of frugality you'd expect from a far more complex full hybrid engine, like the one in the Honda HR-V that we tried just before this test, which replicates its Ford's returns almost exactly. So how has Ford done it? Well, this 1 litre 3-cylinder turbo unit is fundamentally frugal. It's able to shut off when the car's coasting and run on just 2 cylinders under light throttle loads. Its added 48-volt electrical system is primarily there to reduce the amount of work required from the petrol engine under acceleration, and that's thanks to a BISG, a belt-driven integrated starter generator. That provides up to 50 Newton meters of extra mid-range torque. The BISG also cuts cuts in when you're coasting to a stop and when the car's in gear with the clutch pedal depressed. Plus it quickens the stop-start system's engine restart in urban traffic. So you can see all this happening, the instrument screen offers a selectable hybrid gauge. Saddle is set up with the 7-speed automatic transmission we're trying here, and the stats aren't quite as good, up to 49.6 mpg and 129 grams per kilometre for the 125 PS and 155 PS models, and up to 47.9 mpg and 135 grams per kilometre for the top ST. To help you get close to those WLTP rated stats in real life, the instrument screen provides what Ford calls an eco behaviour meter, which grades your driving out of 100 in terms of acceleration, deceleration and speed. If you want real efficiency in an automatic Puma though, you'll want the full electric Puma Gen E model. This will offer a range of up to 234 miles, and if you connect the car up to a 100 kilowatt DC rapid charger, you'll be able to replenish the 43 kilowatt hour battery from 10 to 80% in just 23 minutes. An AC home charge using a typical 7 kilowatt wall box, that would be possible in about, well, just under 7 hours. But back to this combustion model, it needs servicing every 18,000 miles or every 2 years, whichever comes around first. Ideally, you'd buy Ford's 3-year service plan at point of purchase. That's around £370 as we filmed. To monitor servicing status, there's a vehicle maintenance section in the instrument screen there. The warranty with this car is the usual unimpressive 3-year 60,000 mile package. Insurance, that's Group 12E for this 125 PS model. It rises to 17E for the 155 PS and 21E for the top ST. Annual vehicle excise duty will be £180 from year 2, with a £10 saving courtesy of the car's mild hybrid system that allows it to be classified as an alternative fuel vehicle. Depreciation is rated at 52 to 54.3% over 3 years and 36,000 miles. That's a pretty decent showing by segment standards. Back in late 2019, Ford's decision to reuse the Puma name for this little SUV wasn't universally popular amongst enthusiasts for the original coupe model, but that doesn't matter much. After all, for the real target market here, this car's badge is more likely to suggest sportswear or trainers than a classically styled sports coupe. And that lifestyle orientation fits with the kind of little SUV that this Ford is still trying to be: active, trendy, charismatic and current. It's not perfect, of course. We are disappointed that this update hasn't brought an upgrade in cabin quality, and as before, rear seat space is tight by segment standards. But the added screen tech is welcome, boot space is brilliant, and as before, this Ford embarrasses most of its segment rivals when it comes to drive dynamics. It remains a benchmark standard for the kind of driving enjoyment a little car of this kind can serve up. As enthusiasts, of course, we still can't help wishing it was still a small coupe, but as pragmatists, we reckon Ford has got this car just about right.